Hey, it's Michelle Malkin, and I've got a special program for you. I've got the co-authors of the New York Times best-selling authors, of course, of The Case Against Masks, 10 Reasons Why Mask Use Should Be Limited. I've got Dr. Judy Mikovitz and Kent Henkenlively. I'm going to bring them in right now. Hi there.
Hi there, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
It's good to see both of you again, and this could not be more needed than ever. And I want to go to you first, Kent, and get your reaction first to Robert Redfield's comments yesterday before the CDC, in which he claimed, and I want to get this right, I want to quote it right, he claimed that masks were, quote, more guaranteed to protect me than a vaccine.
Sorry about that. Okay.
That's perfect timing.
So, Robert Redfield seems like he's just been struggling to have some kind of coherent message, and he fails again to have any coherence to his message because mask usage has not been shown to be effective in preventing viruses from spreading. It's been shown pretty well with bacteria and everything, which is why doctors and nurses when they're in surgery. But Redfield is, again, making absolutely no sense.
Okay, Judy, I want to go to you because he followed up and tried to mop this up, Robert Redfield did, when he was chastised by Donald Trump, who rejected these statements. And so Robert Redfield was, I guess, leaned upon to do a clarifying set of tweets in which he said, quote, "The best defense we currently have against this virus are the important mitigation efforts of wearing a mask, washing your hands, social distancing, and being careful about crowds." He then followed that up by saying, "I 100% believe in the importance of vaccines and the importance in particular of a COVID vaccine. A COVID-19 vaccine is the thing that will get Americans back to normal everyday life." Your thoughts first on his mask promotion, and then secondly on the follow-up that he published with regard to the COVID vaccine.
Well, the mask is absolutely, actually both comments are criminal because the mask is not only not effective, but it's dangerous for the most vulnerable in our society. So the most vulnerable in our society, people with asthma, people like my husband with COPD, and me with pleurisy, and first responders, our military, our frontline healthcare workers. The masks are dangerous for them to wear in a non-sterile condition, and as Kent just said, it's used to protect the patients. We're literally killing cancer patients, kids with autism who already have the very low levels, dangerously low levels of glutathione, people with these other viruses, HIV, the XMRVs associated with chronic fatigue syndrome, prostate cancer, and chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and idiopathic thrombocytopenia, bleeding disorders. Those are exactly the patients. That's 25 million Americans. And if they wear a mask for even seconds, it can drive the tumors. There's a hypoxia-inducible transcription factor. It's called hypoxia-inducible transcription factor 1 alpha. It's like throwing a blowtorch on cancer. And cancer patients are being required to wear masks in cancer treatment facilities. The doctor should be wearing the mask to protect the patients, and the most vulnerable are going to die. And with respect to the vaccine, if you wear a mask and you get any vaccine, a flu vaccine or any vaccine, you are going to enhance the shedding, the expression, and the damage to your own immune system by the live attenuated flu vaccines. They're attenuated, but if you've crippled your immune system with a mask, the glutathione, you will drive. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire, that inflammation, the very inflammatory cytokine signature that is the hallmark of COVID-19. The masks are dangerous in driving disease. And I guess the only thing I can say about his first comment about the vaccine is, well, the mask is safer than the vaccine because, in fact, the vaccine is not going to be safe at all, and it's going to enhance killing the most vulnerable in our society. And again, that's the military, the first responders, the healthcare workers, people like me in chapter 7 or 8 of our first book, Plague, the healthcare workers who are seroconverting, contagious XMRVs, contagious mouse cancer-causing virus that spread in large water droplets, just like the coronavirus. We're activating the dormant viruses in us with the mask, with any other vaccine, and driving our own disease processes. Literally, it's murder for the people who are infected with these viruses, and that's that he knows that.
Right, right. Ken, I want to ask you this because people who have not immersed themselves in the peer-reviewed literature on the effectiveness or lack thereof of masks are confused. These same public health industrial complex operatives were the ones back in February who were admonishing people not to wear masks, right? We had the Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, telling people, don't wear masks. It's not going to protect you. We had Robert Redfield himself answering a question in front of one of the congressional committees when asked, should you wear a mask if you're healthy? Flat out said no. How do people reconcile this sort of performative mask theater, and what kind of credibility do these people have in recommending masks as some sort of protective measure against COVID?
Michelle, you ask a great question, because one of the things that I think is really helpful to people, and what I try to do in our books, is to simplify it. So let's take one of the simplest things we could talk about. Let's talk about the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the air, okay? So what's in the air we breathe in? The amount of oxygen in the air is about 20.9%, okay? But when it comes out of our mouth, it's at about 16%, okay? So that means the air coming out of your mouth, 16% oxygen. What is danger, according to our leading scientists? Anything that's less than 19%. So that means that air that's local, we're rebreathing, and it's not oxygen rich for us. It's oxygen depleted. Let's talk about carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is 0.04% in the atmosphere. When it comes out of our mouth, it's at 4%, okay? So there's 100-fold increase in carbon dioxide when it's in our bodies because it's a waste product. What is the danger level? The danger level, according to the leading scientists, is 10%. So if you have one of those sensors at your house, it's going to go off at about 10%. So what that means is literally 2.5 breaths that you're rebreathing is dangerous, according to leading scientists. So what we have here is, it's kind of it's really madness, because what's happening is any mask that is causing you to rebreathe air is affecting the function of your immune system, as Dr. Mikovitz talks about. Any mask that's blowing everything over your face, is spreading virus and bacteria, not straight out as nature intended us to, but it's putting it into our eyes, into our nose, these kinds of things, which can be even more dangerous. So just looking at the simple facts about oxygen and carbon dioxide leads you to the craziness of masks. And so, I like to make it really simple. How much oxygen and how much carbon dioxide should we be breathing in? And so when they, unfortunately, except for the design flaw in human beings that we need oxygen, don't need a lot of carbon dioxide, hey, masks might be good, but unfortunately we need things like oxygen. We need to keep carbon dioxide away from us.
Right. And Judy, I want to follow up on this because we've got this terrible situation where millions of school children are only allowed to go to their classrooms in person if their parents agree to have them masked for upwards of 6 or 7 hours with possibly 2 or 3 10-minute breaks. And we know, particularly among a lot of elementary school children, they're going to be doing what Robert Redfield did in front of the nation, which is fingering their masks and having them dragging on the desks or other places where they're exposed to bacteria. Can you talk a little bit about why children do not need to wear a mask to return to school?
Well, number one, again, they drive the disease. They don't protect anything. The children are going to be a lot more than immune suppressed. They're growing children. They won't do their bone formation properly because that breathing carbon dioxide and back in and not getting enough oxygen. Oxygen runs every single metabolic reaction. So you need that. When you breathe out 16%, you use that 4% for growing, for thinking, for doing every process in your body, digestion, respiration. That's the whole point. We're not plants. We don't do photosynthesis. That we need to be breathing air. So not only do they not need to, but it's going to destroy their ability to learn and think and drive psychosis. I hope at some time you'll interview my friend, Dr. Sheila Ely, who's done a decade worth of study in getting her PhD on the damage for the autistic kids. We have millions of autistic kids, and those kids with the low levels of glutathione, as I mentioned, they can die in that mask in only a few moments. You can activate dormant infections. They're also mandating flu vaccines to go to school. And these kids can't handle these RNA viruses if they're compromising their immune systems. Their immunity is compromised. They stop growing. They stop learning. It's the worst thing I can ever think about. We say that mask use is limited and limited. There are safe masks. I'm holding up one right now. I would let kids wear this mask to school for a couple of reasons. Number one, it hits their chin. If they sneeze or if I cough on you, it goes right into the mask. You can wipe it clean with essential oils like tea tree oil. So unlike those surgical masks that have Teflon, fluoride, toxic levels of fluoride, which are against PTFE, it's called for short. That's against Prop 65 in California, and yet it's on a mask and you're inhaling it. It's getting wet and it's going into your lungs and causing toxic levels. It can be carcinogenic in and of itself. So a safe mask, because as Dr. Sheila Ely showed, especially kids with sensory processing disorders, which most of our kids have now, ADHD, fear, anxiety. The mask is going to drive all of those, but this one won't. You can see me smile. You can take direction from a teacher. If you're deaf, if you're hearing impaired, this is just fine. This is fine for the disease process. No virus will go through this piece of polycarbonate in that water droplet. As I said, I can wipe it clean with antiviral material and not make myself sick. And yet that's denied use in these schools, and that's denied use on airplanes and on trains. It's like, no, that's not good enough. You're not suffocating yourself. You're not doing damage to your brain. So that's what I'm here for in Florida at the Max Living Conference, to teach chiropractors, what are safe uses of masks, what are safe uses for school, and this will be the mask that we recommend. And there can be no complaint, because unlike what Robert Redfield said, with the virus going right through that mask. It doesn't go through this mask. And it can help prevent the spread of disease. And it doesn't affect your child's growth or anything else. So this is why we said mask use should be limited. There's a time and a place for every type of personal protective equipment. Professionals like myself are trained for weeks, if not years, on the appropriate use of these personal protective equipment.
Got it. And Kent, I'm going to go back to you because a lot of the comorbidities that we're seeing now that make people more susceptible to severe responses to COVID, things like heart disease or respiratory problems or diabetes, these are things that by and large are not things that are suffered by children. So what is the summary of the data on children's risk for COVID and their risks of transmitting the virus to the adults in their lives?
So my understanding of the research from around the world is that the to children is extremely low. Let's talk about how low that risk might be based on current understanding. So last year it seemed that there were probably about 130 kids in the United States who died. Currently, the number of children who have died from COVID is about 30. Okay, so it's 1/4 of the flu deaths. Here in California, we're pretty much shut down in our schools, and we have, as I understand it, 0 deaths in California. Studies that we cite in the book talk about schools in Europe that have looked at this, and they have found 0 cases of transmission between students and their teachers. Children, when they get this virus, they do not show symptoms. If they're not showing symptoms, that tends to mean that they cannot transmit it to others, because it's really only when you're showing symptoms of hacking or coughing that you're actually spreading it. Otherwise, the viral load is so low that you are not a transmitter. So as I understand the science from around the world, and Judy can weigh in here, there is absolutely 0 reason for students not to be all across our country and all across the world.
Judy, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, he's exactly right. That's what the data say, and he should know. Kent's a 6th grade science teacher, so he's around kids all day, and he knows they're not only are they not transmitting the virus, but they're developing immunity to the virus, just like as when we're kids and we get a natural chickenpox infection. That infection, as we're shedding low levels of it, we're actually giving boosters to our grandparents, so that they see the virus in a normal way with very few particles, and therefore they don't get sick. Therefore, they have their memory immune responses. So not only are kids not transmitting the virus or getting sick, so everything about the mask, everything about social distancing is actually preventing them from producing a healthy immunity in such a way that they protect their families when they go home.
Right. Another point I wanted to make sure to hit is reason number 9 in the case against masks is the myth of asymptomatic carriers. Can you explain that for the audience?
Well, it's a myth. There's no such thing as an asymptomatic carrier of a coronavirus. You clear a coronavirus. You degrade it in your nasal passages, either with enzymes type 1 interferon, driving type 1 interferon responses, the macrophages, the mast cell, the innate immune response, generating that low-level fever or whatever it is when you're symptomatic is an immune response that says you have a level of infection. If you have a memory and you don't generate a fever or coughing, as Kent said, you can't possibly spread the virus. So I'm coughing right now, and I'm not coughing large water droplets. I won't even fog this. It did not get wet. clearly not spreading the virus, and again, making themselves sick as they inhale and amplify and deplete your glutathione, your CD4 responses. We have in the book discussions about from immunologist Russell Blaylock about the T cell immunity that is depleted. And we hear in the news, oh, it's antibodies, not necessarily the response you want, it's T cell immunity. While that's the very immunity that you're crippling when you wear the mask. So there are so many reasons, not only that the masks they're not polite. It's not polite. It's not protecting you. It's not protecting me. And as we clearly show in the book, it's driving disease. We need these kids to be strong and develop healthy immune systems and be able to learn. And wearing masks all day in school is not only deadly for the most vulnerable children, including, as I mentioned, those autistic kids, but the rest of the community. I know that there was a picture of a healthy 16-year-old, and that's what CNN said. Oh, a healthy 16-year-old died of COVID. Well, when you looked at him, he wasn't healthy. He was very much overweight. He was a young Black man, and he was wearing a mask. What killed? What was the inflammatory storm? Because you will drive the same inflammatory signature of disease that is a coronavirus. And we know the tests for coronavirus, are fraud, are false positive. They're not detecting infectious virus. So everything that's being said is driving the disease and driving fear, which is the most powerfully immune suppressive thing there is fear and anger. And this is what we're doing in our community. You can see it outside. COVID-19 is the response of the masks and of the forced vaccinations on the most vulnerable.
Right. Kent, I want to ask you this because the configuration of these kids in these classrooms is 6 feet apart. Only a small percent of the full classroom allowed to actually be there. They've come up with all sorts of new novel euphemisms for hybrid learning or blended learning, where half of the kids are stuck at home. At least they can breathe in their own homes, but they're watching on the computer screens the other half of the kids who are all spaced 6 feet apart. And this raises a very basic question. And again, just to make it very simple, what is the scientific basis for the 6 feet apart distancing rules combined along with the masks?
Well, you raise a great point, because a lot of it gets conflated in the media. So let's talk about what the real science is. So what they're saying is 6 feet social distancing, although the WHO, so the World Health Organization, says 3 feet. So we got a big difference there. That is for those people who may be contagious. Okay. So children, first of all, are not contagious. Results from around the world have shown that they are not spreading the disease. When children get it, they're getting very mild cases. They're not giving it to their teachers. They're not giving it to their parents. They're not giving it to their grandparents. So all of these things for children are really based on, in my opinion, no science whatsoever. Nobody can say, here are the 5 to 10 reasons why children need to be in this configuration. I think that the best thing is send all of our kids back to school. And let me talk a little bit about what Judy had mentioned about the fear thing. I think that that's an enormous thing, because now that we're 6 months into it, and Judy and I would probably have said very similar things on the first day. One of the biggest concerns is vitamin D levels. Okay, so what do we know about Americans? They tend to be very low in vitamin D. So what do we also know about people who are overweight? Well, that interferes with your usage of vitamin D. Lots of these other comorbidities, they affect vitamin D levels. Why are the older people at such risk who are in nursing homes? Well, because they're not getting out in the sun much. I've said from the very beginning that if Judy and I were in charge, what we would have told people is, Go out into the sun for a walk for a half an hour to an hour a day, okay? Then what I would say is watch some funny movie that makes you laugh. Have social interactions. The best thing you can do for your immune system is to, eat good food, get sunlight, have good social connections. When I look at what's been done overall in society for combating this, every single move that they have done seems to me to worsen the epidemic. We should have been getting people out into the sunshine. I mean, all of the beaches should have been open. All of the parks should be open. For example, one of the things that we cover in the book is that it's very clear that this virus will essentially be killed within 2 minutes after exposure to strong sunlight. So on day one of this epidemic, why didn't we just tell everybody to go out into their backyards for an hour and get some sunlight? Okay, that would have been extremely beneficial. So it makes you wonder. And one of the things that I think Judy and I are very good at is we can't tell you why these people are saying these things, but all we can say is it's not based on the science. And so we'll really leave it to other people to come up with what, the plan is behind all of this. It's either stupidity or something malevolent. And for me, I take no stand on that. But whether it's stupidity or evil, it's hurting a lot of people.
Right. Well, one of the things in my reporting has to do with, of course, the massive financial incentives to stifle out any voices who recommend remedies that cannot be cashed in on by Big Pharma. And I don't know if you caught this, Judy, but the other day, Anthony Fauci gave some interview and he admitted that, or acknowledged that he was taking extra doses of both vitamin C and vitamin D. And yet over the last several months, many people have been derided, have been deplatformed for recommending so many of the things that you've talked about and that Kent just alluded to, natural immunity boosters. So it's been several months now that you've been battling, you and Kent have been battling these forces of censorship. Did you have any reaction to Anthony Fauci's disclosures? And he hasn't been banned by Twitter or Facebook for recommending these same things now.
Well, yeah, I probably can't say publicly what I said when I saw it. But Kent knows what it is.
Yeah.
Everybody on the streets of New York City knows what I but it's, this is the double standard. As we saw Tony Fauci sit at a baseball stadium, none of us get to go to the game. The athletes who are the athletes are killing themselves, suffocating themselves, using their mitochondria, using energy, breathing hard, making themselves sick, activating dormant viruses, suppressing their immune system. And he's sitting in the stands without a mask on. And so this is the double standard. And this is why shows like yours are important, because you won't see that on CNN. And so, and one other comment, as for the schools that I happened to see when I was visiting my father the other day, because I literally had to drive from the meeting in Nashville to the meeting in Orlando, because they won't let me on a plane with my pleurisy and my mask that actually works and is safe. And not going to kill me. While I was watching TV show, I saw it was a news channel, and I saw that people are taking their money for schools. So the money we pay in taxes to our teachers, we'll take those too and pay the teachers, take our kids out of those schools. That's what I've been telling everybody. What do? Our kids have to wear these masks to go to school. No, they don't. we'll form the schools. We'll get together in churches. We'll get together with teachers. Whole lot of people unemployed. We'll pay those teachers with the tax money that is not being used to educate our children, but to cripple them and to injure them. So there are solutions that are being considered in the media, and we can restore our society and have people that actually aren't duplicitous and are out for our best interests, take care of our kids, teach our kids, grow healthy food, be our nurses and doctors who actually know. I'm teaching chiropractors here, more than 500 chiropractors here at the Max Living Conference in Orlando, Florida, and we're all going to learn how to be fearless and go back and take care of our patient, no matter what the cost, to take care of their health. Everyone knows the dangers of these masks, and anyone who's put one on for a few minutes knows how horrible they feel. The development of migraine, sore throats, pass out. Wearing a mask, driving a truck is DUI, driving under the influence. I don't want a stewardess with a mask on. I won't get on that plane. Her job is my safety. If I can't see what she is saying, and if by the time the cabin loses pressure and the real oxygen mask drops down, everybody's oxygen depleted, and nobody will have time to get that mask off and get the oxygen they need. In fact, I told the airlines, I will wear that mask. You drop that oxygen mask down and I'll wear it across the country. But of course, that's not offered just as oxygen wasn't offered, and ventilators were used in hospitals to kill the most vulnerable.
It's a brilliant point. Kent, I want to ask you this. God forbid, Joe Biden, presidential candidate, made some noises about supporting a national mask mandate. And I wanted to get your response to that.
If he'd keep his mask on, I'm happy with that, but not for everybody else. It's kind of crazy. And it's interesting because he's walked it back, because I heard him the other day say that he had consulted with his legal experts and he doesn't have the power to do that. So good for him. Good for Joe checking on that. I'd like to say a little bit. You talked about the censorship, and so I wanted to talk about our book, Plague of Corruption, is that even with the censorship, and the censorship has been extreme. I mean, one of the things I did was I paid like a top publicist who claimed he could get us on Fox News with Tucker Carlson, even though I watched Tucker Carlson and I see him saying the exact same things that we are saying now. We were never able to get onto any Fox show. We were never able to get onto any of the mainstream media. And let me talk about how popular our book, Plague of Corruption, has been. It has now more than 3,500 global Amazon reviews. So when you look at what that translates into sales, is they say for every 100 to every 200 books, you get an Amazon review. So what that means is our book in hardcover has likely sold somewhere between 350 and 700,000 copies. Now, I don't know if that's true. Maybe people are just, really passionate. But this has been an enormous bestseller. It blows the doors off every other virus book. The Hot Zone, which was published 25 years ago, has about 1,200 reviews. So here we are dominating the field, and we can't get onto the mainstream media. We can't get onto Fox. It's kind of like you've talked about conservative ink. Well, we are an enemy of conservative ink as much as we're an enemy of the liberal mainstream media. So all that says to me is that Big Pharma has bought both sides of the political aisle. And it's those rare individuals like you, Michelle, who give us a platform. But when you do, there's so much incredible hunger out there for what we have to say, is we kind of beat them at their game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for such a time as this, Judy, it was a perfect storm. And you've been relentless. I mean, you and Ken could have rested on your laurels after Plague of Corruption, but you immediately came out with the case against masks. Needed more than ever. And what we're seeing now, which is encouraging to me, and is the topic of my column this week, is that there now is a brewing nationwide revolt against the masks. It's not just the junk science that is undergirding it, but also people are standing up. They see it as a threat to their liberties. We had this huge ruling by a federal judge in Pennsylvania who rescinded the mask order and other COVID-related orders. Somehow, your message is getting out there. That must be edifying.
Oh, absolutely. I can't even tell you the courage it takes for me to drive 1,000 miles alone through Hurricane Sally, but I'm not giving up. So thanks to God, I got here safely. And the doctors, the 500 doctors here, we've got hundreds of copies of Plague of Corruption and the mask book. I was told by a friend back in California, they tried to order 15 mask books and send them to Barnes and Noble, and Barnes and Noble refused. They said, we'll send them to your home. We're not putting them on the shelf. And in fact, it's so censored, the guy had to come up with the ISBN number to get them to order the book. So wow. They're doing everything they can. Thank God it's 80 pages long, every single 80 references. It's both sides. It's hearing everybody we just talked about, Robert Redfield, Tony Fauci, the studies that say, no, you don't wear a mask, you're transmitting disease for decades, and both sides. And then the fraudulent ones. I understand New England Journal of Medicine came out yesterday with a comment, oh, look, the masks concentrate the virus, so you've got more particles, so you develop immunity. I mean, can you believe how insane? New England Journal of Medicine. Can you twist it? And are we that stupid? Well, thank God we aren't that stupid. And thank God for Kent, because he's the one that forced it. I think I signed the contract on June 30th, and the book was due July 2nd. So
I'm the pusher. Pusher.
Yes, that's right. You're the nudger.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Kent, I'm going to give you the last word. Points to remember to distill the case against the masks. What would you say the top 3 points are that people need to take away?
Oxygen is good for you. Carbon dioxide is bad. Most of the deaths have taken place in nursing homes. In some states, it seems to be up to 70 to 80% of it. And there is no such thing as an asymptomatic carrier. So we do not need to be scared of each other.
Got it. The book is The Case Against Masks, 10 Reasons Why Mask Use Should Be Limited. Kent Henkenlively, Judy Mikovitz. What do you recommend as the best place to get the book?
Unfortunately, Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I'm working with a group called Magazon. So they've got some Books A Million. Any place you normally get books, independent bookstores, order it. Hopefully they'll ship it to you. But you can go to the Horse website or Simon & Schuster website and order it. Just get it, because everything shows as a sale for us. So
you got it. All right. Wherever you can get it, get it. Judy, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, get 10 of them and put them in every coffee shop and every restaurant and every bus driver who has a mask that's driving you around, the airplane, the pilots. I tried to give it to the oncologist that wouldn't let me in the door, and she acted like it was dirty. No, I can't educate myself.
Well, I'm hugging this copy, hugging it. Off. Right. No social distancing with the truth. I appreciate you both so much. It was great catching up with you. Stay safe and stay free and breathe free. Take care, both of you. I love it. And I love the I do not comply button too. Need that.
Yeah, I got that in the last meeting. Nobody's complying.
Right. Thanks, Kent. Thanks, Judy. Take care.
Thanks, Michelle.